The state continues to cut funding for higher ed, UMass in particular. My question is, what grade do you give UMass and why?
Well, I think they deserve an A for effort, UMass and the entire public higher education system, because these are very, very difficult times. Very difficult times.
So are you saying with the A, I'm sorry, that they can't get any better with the A?
No,
So
I think we could get better. And I think we need to get better. Now, it's not going to be easy, and I'm not going to stand here and say we're going to promise more funding for higher education next year. However, higher education has probably taken the biggest hit. Of all of our major budget items, it has gone down the most of anything. Healthcare costs have gone up, pension costs have gone up, local aid has gone up slightly, education itself, K-12, has been flat, higher education has gone down. And that means we're not reinvesting in our future. So again, it's an A for effort, but we need to provide more resources, and we need to make sure that that money goes as close to the student as possible. I have 4 children of my own, and higher education is difficult, very, very difficult. If we don't keep it affordable, then none of us are going to be able to send our kids to school going forward, or they will graduate with so much debt that they won't be able to start a business or buy a car or buy a house, which is a problem. Or their parents will have to sell their house in order to pay for the education, which we're not there yet, but that day may come. That's what we as the state government have to do, is create a viable public higher education system that can compete with private education. It's always going to be a challenge for us here in Massachusetts, unlike other states, because we've got so many fine private institutions that have been around for decades, and in some cases for centuries. And that is different from what we compete against in North Carolina, in Texas, in some of these other states where the public university system is the dominant system. We'll never be that, but we don't have to make it second class. So I believe we need to look to invest as we go forward when the economy grows. But the only way that's going to happen is if we add jobs, if we grow our economy. We have to grow the pie. If we don't grow the pie, then we will continue to continue to cut all the way down. And I firmly believe that the way to do that is to bring the cost of business down. It has to be brought down. Some in direct taxation, some in just the cost of hiring people, some in energy costs and electricity. Things that won't cost the government, in many ways, will help the government. We were talking to some nonprofit providers today, and the mantra there was we need to raise taxes to support people with disabilities and those people at the bottom of the ladder. I disagree with that, because in many cases, those providers are small businesses. They just happen to be nonprofit. If we can cut the cost of them hiring people, cut their energy costs, their workmen's compensation costs, that will allow them to grow jobs as well, and their employees to keep a little bit more of their money. So we have to keep both sides, nonprofit and for-profit world, growing as we go forward, to give you as many different options and opportunities as possible. When people are working, they pay taxes, and that's what's not happening right now.
Let me step in. We've got time for one more quick Q&A. Maybe let's keep with you, George, and go down the line.
Well, you've been talking a lot about the cost, lowering the cost of doing business in Massachusetts, yet that's pretty hard given some of the fundamental things. It's a high wage state, the energy costs are high, unemployment insurance is double the national average. So what specifically do you do to make it more viable for small businesses to cut costs? I mean, where does government fit in?
Well, government fits in on the actual tax structure. Wherever we can cut taxes for individuals, for business, bringing the sales tax back to 5% is a good start. Bringing the income tax down to 5%, because so many small businesses file as individuals. They don't file as corporations. Opposing things like Cape Wind, which I know may be popular in some areas, but it's going to cost electricity ratepayers much more. It's a subsidization, and it's not going to bring down the cost of electricity. It's going to bring up the cost. And we have to get serious about unemployment insurance costs in this state. I don't see any reason why we can't be the same and give the same benefits that other states do, but why we cannot afford to be the most generous, because that generosity has a cost. And my focus is not to deny people unemployment checks. My focus is to try to create employment. When I was a teenager, my father lost his job, and there were 9 of us in the family, and we had to survive. And I don't know how he did survive for a couple of years while he was out of work, working odd jobs. I worked, my sisters and brothers all worked that were of age. Eventually, my father was able to get a job, and that put us back on our feet. That's the most important thing we can do, is create job opportunities at any level that we possibly can. And government can't not just sit back. If we get defeated in our attempt to roll taxes back or to cut taxes, then we have to go to the business community and go in areas where maybe the legislature doesn't have oversight, like green energy costs that, although very good for the economy and possibly good for the environment, are going to be, in many cases, counterproductive in creating jobs, because at the end of the day, and I know this from being in business, you have to stay competitive. I went through 2 recessions as a small businessman, and the challenge in each time is your incentive, or in your mind, you just want to raise prices because that's the easy way out. You think it will create more revenue. At the end of the day, as a small businessman, it has to compete with other cafes and coffee shops. You often can't do it. So you have to cut spending, you have to cut your costs, and if government gives you an opportunity to cut some of those other costs, you need to take advantage of it in order to survive.
Great. I hate to say it, to stay on schedule, I got to cancel the last 2 questions, and we'll turn to Tim for a 1-minute closing statement.
Well, thank you all very much. I'm sorry I answered those questions too long. I was looking forward to the lightning stage. But I apologize very much. And I just want to tell you all, it's been an honor and a privilege to run for governor of this great state. And I believe it is a great state. It has great institutions, both nonprofit and for-profit. We've been an innovator in Massachusetts for centuries, and we need to continue to be an innovator. We need to look for job growth anywhere we can, and you need a governor that will fight for you. I'm a member of the middle class, like many of you in this audience. No one is going to hand me a job. No one is going to give me a job or give you a job. You've got to fight for it. And sometimes you have to start at the bottom, as I did. And there's no shame in that. You have to be willing to fail, as I have done. And there's no shame in that. The key is to keep going and to have a government that will work for you and on your behalf to give you every opportunity that people in other states and in other nations have. I hope you'll consider my candidacy as someone who will fight for you and fight for opportunities for you, members of your family, and the future of Massachusetts. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Treasurer Cahill. That's fine. Our final testimonial, as we wait for Governor Patrick to come up and conclude our forum, will come from Jerry LaShore. He's a graduate of the Hotel Training Center. He's been working at Fenway Park. Red Sox are not done yet. And he will be working at the TD Garden for the fall sports.